Jordan Schultz, NFL insider for Bleacher Report, is in Los Angeles. When he is, we put him on the set. My friend, let's start with the Commanders. So Ben Johnson was the leading candidate. There was a quarterback, Boomer Esiason, guaranteed it was done. Something unraveled. You told me during the break, the last 2 to 3 days, it wasn't Ben Johnson.
I think Ben Johnson, you're talking about Washington?
Yeah.
Ben Johnson was in a really interesting position because he knew that Adam Peters, the GM, the new GM in Washington, really liked him. He also knows that he has a great, basically perfect situation coming back in Detroit next year. I have no doubt that Jared Goff's going to get extended. He'll get $40 to $45 million this offseason per year. He's the guy now, right? He was the placeholder with the Stafford trade. He proved himself. He's the guy.
Okay.
You have Gibbs, you have St. Brown, you have Jameson Williams, this dynamic young offense, Laporta, great offensive line. Ben Johnson knows he's going to be a very hot candidate next year.
Yes.
And when you think about it, over the last 5 years, Colin, 8 candidates are available, 8 jobs every single year. In other words, a third of the league gets fired every offseason.
Yeah.
So if Ben Johnson does what he's supposed to do next year, he'll be even in more demand heading into 2025.
Okay. So Commanders is the only job not filled.
Yep.
Before we get to Seattle's being filled, is Vrabel still it all? Belichick, Vrabel it all up for that one?
Say Belichick, no. Vrabel would surprise me. I think it's down to Weaver from Baltimore. You got Dan Quinn and Aaron Glenn from Detroit, the defensive coordinator. Now, Ben Johnson told Detroit as they were on the airplane, I'm going to stay here. But Aaron Glenn is firmly in the mix as well. So you basically have 3 guys. I'd be very surprised if Vrabel got in the mix. He hasn't interviewed there. Listen, this is a new ownership group with Josh Harris that spent $6 billion plus on this franchise. They want to be the antithesis of what Daniel Snyder was. They want to have a sustainable franchise, right? So you think about those 3 candidates. Weaver's an up-and-comer, really well-liked defensive guy. Aaron Glenn, defensive guy. Dan Quinn, defensive guy. So regardless, even if they went Vrabel, that's pretty much a defensive guy as well. So they want a defensive guy now. They shifted off of Ben Johnson. And I think all 3 of those guys are really in the mix. But Dan Quinn, to me, makes a lot of sense because he's a perfect, I believe, not placeholder, replacement of Ron Rivera, because a lot of the things that Ron Rivera wasn't willing to do, take full control of the defense, Dan Quinn will be willing to do that. Dan Quinn in his mid-50s, they had a top 5 defense across the board in Dallas last year, interviewed very well, has a really good relationship with Adam Peters. I think he makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure if he gets the job because I was told Weaver did awesome, as did Glenn in the interviews. But I like the Dan Quinn effect just because of the culture he can instill.
So Harbaugh's had the job for a few days. Jim, this appeared to be a really good match. Take me behind the scenes why it was.
We said 6 weeks ago the Chargers targeted Jim Harbaugh. That was their guy. Jim Harbaugh was suspended, 6 games last year?
Yeah.
He already had just a cadre of violations for 2024. He knew there was a really good chance he was going to get suspended again. He wins the national championship. He goes to 3 straight college football playoffs in Michigan. He did everything he was supposed to do. So he goes to the Chargers, and that was really the only organization, Colin, as it was described to me, willing to cede full control. Now, the GM they bring in from Baltimore was with John Harbaugh. So he goes from John to Jim. Right. Okay, he has the quarterback. He has the $250 million facility. He has everything you'd want, as well as, again, full operating control. So as it's been described to me, he will work in collaboration with the new GM, but ultimately Jim Harbaugh is going to have final say. That was incredibly important. And as we just talked about, 5 years at $80 million, 16 per year. He's getting a tremendous amount of money, lifetime security, really. So it made a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And then, by the way, he wants to say to John Harbaugh, I also have a Super Bowl. I also have a national championship. You don't have that.
Well, right. You're from the Pacific Northwest. You're tied into the Seahawks. Mike Macdonald, this Ravens defense, J-Mac talked about this yesterday. Everybody in the league is buzzing about this guy. It's got a little bit of a D'Amico Ryans feel where 2 years ago somebody from the Niners said, we got the next great coach on our staff. And it wasn't Solon necessarily, though they liked him. They were like, keep your eye for D'Amico Ryans, the guy that just played.
Yeah.
So you're hearing similar things with Mike Macdonald.
Yeah. It's a great point comparing D'Amico, who just had this meteoric rise through the NFL ranks. And when you think about Mike Macdonald, what does he do really well? I had a GM describe Mike Macdonald to me as Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, and Sean McVay on the defensive side of the ball. That's how creative he was. Think about all the all-pro years that he was able to instill this season in Baltimore. Kyle Hamilton, Matabuke. You think about what he did for Patrick Queen.
Roquan Smith became the best linebacker. He literally changed the whole defense.
Roquan Smith was unbelievable, but so was Patrick Queen. That duo was the best linebacking duo arguably in the league. And what did he do? He took Patrick Queen, whose option was not even picked up by Baltimore last offseason, and turned him into a Pro Bowl caliber player. So I love the Mike Macdonald hire. His creativity. Look what he did after the first 2 drives with Kansas City. I mean, that's the best quarterback that's the best player arguably in pro sports, in Patrick Mahomes. After those first 2 drives, he created problems. He was sending exotic blitzes. You didn't know where Kyle Hamilton was coming from. Obviously, that's great personnel, but what Mike Macdonald's going to do at 36 years old is take a Seattle defense that has been in the bottom half, bottom third the last 3 years.
With some really good players.
That's the thing. They have great talent. You think about Jordan Brooks and some of the young safeties and corners, obviously Woolen and Spoon.
Yeah.
He's going to take those guys to an entirely different dimension. And I believe at 36, the runway is so long for him that he's the exact type of fit that Seattle needed after Pete Carroll at 72.
So Belichick is interesting because I had said earlier, sometimes Nike from the Northwest makes you after 10 years take 5 weeks off, reboot, don't come to the campus, get out of the country, get off the treadmill. We want you to see the world beyond your current borders. And it's a really nice reboot for people, I think emotionally, intellectually, go see other stuff. In the NFL, you can't, you don't get those. But I would say Bill was no days off as GM and coach for over 10 years doing both. He got a little allergic and tone deaf to the cultural changes of the league. I don't think it's horrible that he takes a step back and does some TV. What do you hear about what he wants? Was it the Atlanta thing didn't work. We thought he was in the lead.
That's very well said, Colin. And you talk about, I love the Beaver to Nike comp. Listen, I believe that both Bill Belichick and Arthur Blank, heading into the process, believed that Belichick was going to be the guy. Belichick interviewed twice. The guy's almost 72 years old. He's won 6 Super Bowls. He is the greatest of all time. The fact that he interviewed twice tells us he really wanted that job, but I think was also willing to work with Arthur Blank. But I think what happened with Atlanta was that it became abundantly clear 2 things. One, Bill Belichick, the last 3 or 4 years when he had full control, wasn't the answer. You just talked about the last decade, kind of losing touch with that. It's hard enough to be a head coach in the league. It's really, really hard to do 2. I think Bill Belichick at this point in his career, in his 70s, should just be a head coach. But what I'm told is that Arthur Blank, the people around him were telling him, listen, if you hire Bill Belichick, even if Terry Fontenot's still here as the GM, he's still going to have the final say because that's what he wants. And the type of money and the ego that's all there is not what we need. So you take in all of that, and then the fact that Raheem Morris came and absolutely blew it out of the park.
Yeah.
His interview process was tremendous. He brings in Zach Robinson from the Rams, who was the OC. And I think what Raheem learned from Tampa was, I got to delegate more. So let me focus on the defense and let me have Zach run the offense. I think both hires were terrific. I'm not saying that Bill or Pete Carroll wouldn't want to coach moving forward, but I think both those guys need to wait it out, maybe do TV. I think they'd be awesome, potentially revolutionize TV. They'd be phenomenal, but wait it out to the 2025 cycle where, again, the last 5 years tells us there's going to be 8 jobs available.
So the Senior Bowl, Michael Penix and Bo Nix, the Northwest kids who are going to get drafted. Bo Nix for sure in the first round. I think Penix. There's some concerns at Indiana, about some injuries, surgeries. Yeah. So what did you hear down there?
So what I was told was there's a lot about Penix that people are going to find out this week. Number one, he had the biggest hand size Penix did of any non-lineman in Mobile.
Wow. Massive
mitts. Now we know evaluators love the big mitts.
They do.
He also has a 6'9" wingspan. He's freakishly long. He stands about 6'2.5", 6'3".
Yeah.
So what he's able to do, and I talked to John Beck yesterday, who's his quarterback coach, who's worked with C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, Bryce Young. I said, what is it about Mike that you love? You see the Oregon State game right there?
Yeah.
He said, go back and watch the Oregon State tape. That was a really talented defense in horrendous weather. Look what Michael Penix did to them. Look at the big throws he made when it mattered most in the elements. That's what's going to separate Mike from a lot of other quarterback prospects. And then you talk about the composure. This is the greatest quarterback and greatest player in Husky history. He had Rome Odunze, he had Polk, he had McMillan. Those guys are terrific. And then you see West over there, the way he spreads the ball around, he's like Steve Nash. That's how one assistant GM told me. He's like Steve Nash. He's so unselfish with not committing to one guy over the other. He's going to find guys when they're available. He's never going to panic, and his intelligence is through the roof. And then you just have the Matthew Stafford arm angles. Yeah. That's what John Beck told me as well. He said, Penix reminds me of Matthew Stafford with how he can dip his arm angles in the slots, and that really matters in tight windows. And he said because he's so composed, Michael Penix is able to see those windows, see what a defense is presenting him, never panic, and then obviously deliver on time and accurate.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of Aaron Rodgers defenders on this show, but there was a massive article in The Athletic this morning that there were 30 sources on it. My takeaway was it was mostly, honestly, about Nat Hackett and how Nat Hackett has lost confidence in the building from coaches and people, but he's Aaron's kind of buddy.
Yeah.
And so Aaron's like, he's my guy, and he lets me do what I want to do. And I've said before, owners, Belichick, Aaron, it's not if you want to really win in this league, you can't do everything on your terms.
Yeah.
Sometimes Mahomes is going to get barked at by Eric Bieniemy,
right?
Andy Reid. You can't just do things to be comfortable. This sounds like Aaron's really comfortable with him. That's my takeaway.
With Nate Hackett.
Yeah, he's his guy, but it sounds like from the Athletic article, Hackett's lost a lot of confidence with multiple coaches in the building. So your takeaway on the article, 30 sources, I never even heard of the 30 sources.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I never heard of 30. Listen, if Aaron Rodgers was so hated in that building, I'm going to say this with great respect to everybody else on the team, would he have been voted most inspirational like he was by his teammates? The answer is no. It's definitively no. Now, I've talked to 5, 6, 7 guys throughout the last few weeks about what went wrong this year. There were a lot of things. Aaron gets hurt. That's the main thing that gets wrong. They didn't have a contingency plan. Zach Wilson wasn't ready to play. Yeah. But Aaron Rodgers is not hated in that building like anywhere else. There's going to be problems day to day. But listen, to me, I'm not saying the reporting was inaccurate. What I'm saying is that Aaron Rodgers has a lot of fans in that building, from the staff to the players, all the way up to Woody Johnson, the owner. And he's going to be back next season. They're going to run it back. They're going to improve their offensive line. That's a big factor. They need another receiver. They need another running back to help Breece Hall. But they're going to, I think with that defense and Robert Saleh just focusing on the defense, that team can be competitive next year. But again, the fact that Aaron Rodgers was voted most inspirational without playing, 4 snaps all year tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, I thought the article, and J-Mac, you may have read it, I thought the article was more about Hackett than Aaron, and that Aaron likes Hackett, and Saleh's lost confidence, clearly another coach on the staff. They didn't like it at camp. I thought it was pretty hard on Hackett. I mean, it's not going to damage Aaron at all, but it did come across like, hey, he's Aaron's buddy, and Aaron's going to get what he wants.
Sure.
But, it's the Jets. Of course he's going to get when LeBron came to the Lakers, LeBron got what he wanted.
Of course. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers one of the 3 at worst best quarterbacks of all time? Does he have the most unbelievable resume of pretty much anyone in the game today other than Mahomes? Yes. He's going to get what he wants. He wanted Nathaniel Hackett. He got him. They were tight in Green Bay. I also asked Randall Cobb, I said, with Aaron not being in the building, and obviously they go back to Green Bay together 10 plus years. I said, what impact did it have? He said, Aaron is a calming presence. Even if we're not playing well, we know eventually Aaron's going to get us there. He's a calming presence. We didn't have that, but Aaron is one of the most beloved guys in this locker room without having been here more than half a year. That was Randall Cobb. So to me, this Jets situation is unfortunate because of the injury. Nathaniel Hackett's not going anywhere. Saleh's not going anywhere. Joe Douglas isn't. They're going to run it back. And I have to believe with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, they're going to win 10 plus games next year.
By the way, J-Mac, did you notice the fairness on this show? We talked about.
I was waiting for J-Mac to jump in and say, no, I didn't like it.
We give both sides. This is somebody defending Aaron. He doesn't watch our show, but if he did, we take both sides.
I'm not going to defend him. I am curious where you guys think, why this story now? We'd like to ask that question. And who's doing a lot of the leaking? I know with 30 sources, it's tough, but there's clearly someone with an agenda.
There was 2 coaches that were critical of Hackett. Uh-huh. So it was, listen, everybody's jealous of power. If I had a bunch of power here, you're going to get somebody, right? That's just the reality of it. And Aaron does have a lot of say, but he's got say because it's been a dysfunctional organization for 12 years. That's why he got say. So I do think some of this stuff is just jealousy, but it's funny. I thought it was more damning
about
Hackett. Aaron
gets attached because he wanted Hackett.
Yeah. And I think one of these things with Aaron is, and I've said this about Belichick, if you really are all in on winning, and I've criticized NFL owners for this, then it can't always be on your terms. Yeah. Owners with the Chargers had to relinquish power to Harbaugh. They'll be better. Belichick relinquished some power to Tommy. They won a lot. I do think Aaron deserves power. I've always said Hackett sounds like a great guy. That doesn't always mean a great coach.
No, it doesn't. It's not a prerequisite. What is a prerequisite is having the respect of your guys, even if they don't like you. It's like any great team. I don't have to like you, Aaron Rodgers, but I do need to respect you. My sense is that he is very well liked and respected. And as soon as he comes back, are we talking about this if Aaron Rodgers played 17 games last year? We're not talking about this because even Hackett's deficiencies aren't going to be exposed. So to me, this is a non-story heading into next year when Rodgers and Hackett are back on the same page and this thing's rolling again, as I have to believe it will.
Look at that. Some positive.
Can I get a pre-season early prediction on the Jets next year from both of you? I'm just curious.
Okay, let's go. Let me see. Let me do this because we were very accurate this year.
You were.
Ryan, we got this division perfect.
You did.
How many games does Aaron Rodgers play?
The over-under is going to be what?
Come on, 13, 14, 15. Come on, he'll play.
15?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to do this.
We don't have the schedule in front of us, but a rough kind of.
I'll go 10-7.
Hold on.
10-7 solid. That's playoffs.
By the way, would you agree Zach Wilson's probably the leaker, his camp of this? A lot of the stuff just seems
but hold on.
Upset with the starting quarterback and Hackett.
But Rodgers was so good to Zach, and Zach idolized Rodgers.
At the beginning, he was. It sounds like in the story that petered out near the end.
Yeah, but does that matter? Does it matter if Zach Wilson doesn't like Aaron? Who cares?
Who cares?
I think he's trying to help his stock going forward.
I think this division is going to look the same. But because I don't think Miami's going anywhere with Tua and McDaniel. I think Buffalo's fine. New England's going to be bad, maybe improved, but bad. They don't have any weapons. I think the Jets will be a viable 9-10 win team. So I had them at 9-10 this year. I'm not. But I will say this: 9 or 10 wins in the NFC can be Detroit. Sure. I can get the conference championship. 9 or 10 in the AFC is not getting you the conference championship. So Burrow's back.
Sure.
Justin
Herbert's back.
And Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, they're not going anywhere. And also Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are not going to be awful for the first 6 weeks.
Regardless of, we don't know where Russell's going to be next year. Maybe they get a quarterback, maybe they don't. But Denver's, I have to assume, will be better. And the Raiders will be better. That whole division is going to be tough.
Yeah. Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence.
Jaguars, I mean.
Yeah. AFC, if the Jets win 9 to 10.
The Texans?
That doesn't mean
the Colts.
By the way, Shane Steichen has Anthony Ray. Again, 10 wins in the AFC doesn't guarantee anything. 10 wins in the NFC, you're a playoff.
Deshaun Watson's back as well. I know you love
Cleveland was they're going to be very good next year.
I thought Stefanski was probably the coach of the year.
Over Campbell? Yeah. Over Ryans?
Yeah, Campbell's got way better players and one quarterback.
D'Amico?
Nice story. I go if you can get to the playoffs with 4 quarterbacks, you win my coach of the year. In the AFC, in a division with Pittsburgh's roster, Baltimore's roster. Okay, Jets have, let's see. So the Jets play, we made this a Jets segment.
Let's
the AFC West, good luck.
Awesome.
Harbaugh, Mahomes, and the AFC North, so they get the Lions, Jordan, AFC. So the AFC West and North. Okay. Oh, that's brutal.
All right, so you got Sean Payton, Antonio Pierce.
Just think of the quarterbacks.
Okay.
The Jets are going to face, beyond Josh Allen twice and Tua twice, they're going to face Mahomes, Herbert, and Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Deshaun Watson.
Woo!
They have an elite defense.
Well, they better stay healthy.
They do have a great defense. Maybe instead of 10-7, I'm going to go 8-9, 9-8, kind of like J-Mac's rec team.
No, hey, didn't they beat the Eagles last year? Jets did.
They did late in the season.
And they fought hard against the Chiefs. I don't remember.
They battled the Chiefs on a Monday night game that was actually really close. Sure.
AFC West, AFC North.
That was that's brutal. Okay, I got to read.
You got to read.
That's brutal.
8-9.
We got free agency. We got the draft.
No Carolina on that schedule. All right, great stuff. As always from you, NFL Insider, Bleacher Report, Jordan Schultz. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.